Today I'll be reading from 2 Timothy 1:5 and 2 Timothy 3:15, English Standard Version. I am reminded of your sincere faith, a faith that dwelt first in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, and now, I am sure, dwells in you as well. And how from childhood you have been acquainted with the sacred writings which are able to make you wise for salvation through faith in Christ Jesus.
Well, happy Mother's Day to our wonderful mothers. And if you happen to be sitting beside your mother right now, she deserves a big hug. If you're beside her and you're lucky enough to be beside your mom, give her a big hug. You're welcome. Moms love hugs, don't they? Especially from their children. I know, I think the only time that my mom would ever refuse a hug from me is if she could hug Liam. I think that is the only time I would be refused a hug. You know, mothers are sacrificers. Mothers give more than, I don't even know if you can fathom it, really, what a good mother has done for you in your life. You know, I heard a story of a mother. Her teenage daughter was embarrassed of being in public with her because her hands were disfigured. So it embarrassed her whenever she went out. And one day she went out shopping with her mother, and her mother went to pay, and the girl seen just a look of fright in the girl behind the register when she looked at her mother's hands, and the daughter just kind of turned around and walked out. She was embarrassed of her mother. The mom gave her some time, and she waited a little bit, and she finally decided she was going to let her daughter know what had happened to her hands. And she let her daughter know that when she was really young, the house caught on fire. And she said she had the option. I could have went right out the front door. But I decided that I'd rather die with my daughter than to get out safe. And I ran through the flames, and I grabbed a hold of you, and I wrapped my arms around you, and I ran down the stairs and out the door, and my arms were just in excruciating pain because they were on fire. But as soon as I looked at you, the pain was gone, is what the mother had said. Now, obviously, that made that little girl change her perspective on her mother. Knowing the background to things sometimes can change the perspective. Never should we ever look at someone because they're different and put them down just because of that. But it's amazing what the stories. Now, I have learned that, when I was growing up, my mom would have done anything for me, and my brothers and my sister. Except that one time when there was a bat that got into the house. I was, I think, 5 years old, and I think my mom pushed me across the room to get under the table. Other than that, my mom has always been on my side. Just don't let the bats get in the way. My mom raised me in the church, and I'm very thankful for that. If you have a mom that raised you in the church, that brought you up teaching you about God, that is the most important thing that a mother can teach you in this life. Because everything else that goes along with life comes along with being a good, godly person. And if your mom teaches you that, she's preparing you for life. The text that was read, as the Apostle Paul talking to Timothy and really just kind of building him up, from the background where his grandmother and his mother who raised him up. Now, the father's not mentioned here in this scenario because Timothy's dad was, he was not a Jew. So there obviously probably might not, now I'm not saying he didn't become a believer in God or become a Christian, I don't know that. But at that time when he was growing up, it was mom and grandma that were raising him. Unfortunately, my generation, at least I think my generation anyways, not to say that there hasn't been other generations that made mistakes, but I think my generation has failed our children. Not every parent from my generation. But what I mean by that is, for instance, at the church camp. And I want to make another mention. I had another announcement just because I mentioned the church camp. Anyone that wants to go to the camp experience, any of our kids that want to go to that, the church is going to cover the cost of that. So if you would like to go to that camp experience, please do sign up for that, and the congregation will cover that cost that Friday and Saturday there at the camp for that event. But anyhow, back to the lesson here. A mother that raises you in the church is a mother that should be held dearly. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't other mothers out there that are good. There's mothers that came to the Lord after their children have grown because they didn't know. There's mothers that their children converted as they got older. That has been seen, So, not saying that. All I'm saying is that I'm thankful for the mom that I had, and for those that were brought up in growing up, going to church. You need to be thankful for what your mom has done for you. There we go. I was looking back at some of my other lessons that I had taught on Mother's Day. Obviously, that's a sermon that we preach, on a yearly basis, so we have a few of those in stock there. But I was going through and I was thinking about some past events, and I think it was a couple years ago. I thought this was amusing, and some of the people that are my age and older would probably get a kick out of it too. But I was talking about some things, and one of the things I had mentioned was that the most phone calls are made on Mother's Day and the most collect calls are made on Father's Day. And what was brought to me afterwards was my children wanted to know what a collect call was. And it's funny to watch that because, there's things that you remember from your childhood, but someone who's younger than you would look back and go, I don't know anything about that. Liam said to me the other day, I don't know where this came from, but he goes, what if everything was in black and white? And I was sitting here thinking, when I was a kid, there were still reruns of the black and white shows on TV. Some of you were watching the black and white shows that were only in that. And it's amazing how things change. But you know what? The idea of motherhood has not changed. From the beginning of time, when God created Eve, the mother of all, God made a special creation when he created moms. And I see that even more so today as I grow up and have children of my own and see things from a different viewpoint. Growing up, you looked at mom just always took care of you. Mom was always there. Mom was always there. But then when you become a father and you watch your own wife be a mother, I don't know. But there's a reason God gave Adam a helper. Number one, we wouldn't have any children if he wouldn't have. But with that being said, the dynamics of mom and dad are so different. I would hate to see my children grow up without their mother. I wouldn't want them to grow up without me either. But the moms, to me, are just precious. And what a mother does and what moms do for their children when they are in the house and when they're out of the house is amazing. There are many great pictures in the Bible of mothers. Obviously, any time that we want to become something better in the design of God, of Christianity, we need to look to the Bible. And, you look at Exodus chapter 2, and you look at Moses' mother, Jochebed, and what she did to protect her son. There are other mothers at that time that their boys were thrown into the Nile River, and that was it. Moses' mom, she had a plan. How about the mother in 1 Kings chapter 3 The mother who stood before King Solomon. And I've heard people laugh about that, King Solomon saying, cut the baby in half. He wasn't going to cut the baby in half. He knew what his crowd was in front of him, and he knew the real mother would stand up, and what a mother was. How about the mother of James and John? Maybe misguided a little bit on the requests that she makes. But you know what? There's no doubt in my mind that James and John's mother didn't do that because she wanted her sons to be successful. Now, I don't think she was standing there just as, I would say, majority of the mothers, they don't do things because they want credit. They do things because they want their children to be successful. They want them to grow up. They want them to be good citizens in this world, but they also want you to grow up to be Christians. You know, on obvious Proverbs 31, look at the mother of King Lemuel. Mother's Day can be a celebration as well as a day of mourning. I know that there are many sitting here today that probably woke up this morning with the thought of their mom who maybe has passed on many years before. But I can guarantee you that your mother's always on your heart. I don't remember my grandmother very well because I was only about 6 years old when she passed away. But since that time, since I've grown up, I've sat down with my mother and talked to her a little bit more about my grandmother. And, just listening to the way my mom talks about her own mother, and the emotions that she puts into the words when she's talking. It's amazing what mothers do for us in these days, in our lives. You take a look at what's a mother to do. Well, a good mother, we hope and pray, models faith for her children. 2 Timothy 1, verse 5, which was from our text. If you want children of faith, you need to develop your own faith. Now, that doesn't mean that your children do not need to grow up and develop their own faith. I can remember Norma told me one time she can remember when she moved out of the house and went to college for the first time. That when she was away from her house, it was when she realized that she now had to obtain her own faith. She had been working on, in essence, in the mom and dad's home, on their faith is what she felt. And now she's out in life and she's got to make her own. And that's the way for all of us. Moms can only guide us so far. Now, I know I've talked to a few heartbroken mothers who wish they were marionette controllers of their children because of the suffering and the pain that the children were going through, or drug addiction, or things like that just, in essence, kills a mother to see a child suffer. A child can see the difference between genuine devotion and going through the motions. We need to instill a desire to serve. We need to, hopefully we've learned that from our mothers. Molding faith and instilling faith are important, but unless you instill in your children the desire to put their faith in practice, that faith is useless. James 2 says, you see that a man is justified by works and not by faith only. Likewise, was not Rahab the harlot also justified by works when she received the messengers and sent them out another way? For as the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead also. We need to be good examples to our children as far as serving God. We need to show them what's important in our lives. Because I'll tell you what, there's an old song that you may have heard, and Cat's in the Cradle and the Silver Spoon, right? There's a really strong message in that song. And when you get to the end of that song, you have a father that lived his life the wrong way and he realized it. And it was too late. Why? Because the son became just like him. Hey, Dad, let's go for a toss. No, I don't have time. By the time college came around, the son just wanted the car. He didn't want Dad. We need to make sure that we're instilling that in our children. The importance of serving God, the importance of living as a Christian, serving others. Matthew 23 and verse 11. But he who is greatest among you, he shall be your servant. You know, and in Philippians 2, 3 through 4, the idea of subduing self-will. We need to not let the world pull us away from God. I don't know every single person here and their experience growing up as or with their mother. Not everybody grew up as a mother, by the way. But I know that I've talked to many people, and mothers are just so dear to their heart. But you know what? I think on Mother's Day, we also need to, as I was saying, you know what, I started a thought earlier and I dropped it, but talking about my generation and how I think a lot of us dropped the ball, and I was talking about the camp. I'm at the age where kids that I went to camp with have had children, and their children are now coming to camp. And I cannot tell you how many of those kids that are coming to camp because grandma and grandpa are bringing them, not the mom or the dad that I grew up with. And I've asked, and every time I see someone like that, I try to, I don't say, hey, where's your children? Why are they not here to take break? But I ask questions just to try to see how's the mom and dad? How are they doing? And my generation, I'm sorry, I think we failed. And hopefully those of us that are still here raising children, the ones that are succeeding, that are doing the work of the Lord, I hope we continue that. We need to bring our children up in an environment where they know God. You get asked the question, what's a mother to do? Well, I think the sky's the limit on that one when it comes to her children. You've heard stories of a mother with an adrenaline dose because a car falls on a child, and the mom, out of adrenaline, comes over and picks the car up. It's amazing to me that God created mothers and was willing to give the entire world that present. Because to me, that's what it is. And we have a lot of people in our midst that are grandparents raising grandchildren. We have individuals that adopting children into their lives and raising them. If you take that position as a mother and you are raising someone, I hope you take that seriously and you know how important it is. I hope this morning that if your mother is still with you, and if she wasn't here beside you this morning and you gave her a hug, that you're going to reach out to her, that you're going to maybe even see her today. Well, make sure you let your mother know, not just today, but how important she is to you. Because she is one of the greatest creations that God has ever created. And I really, truly mean that from the bottom of my heart. Let us thank our mothers for who they are. God's creation to teach us, to lead us into this life. And if your mother is no longer with us, you hold that mom to your heart as tight as you can to this day still, because she's still in your heart, because she helped develop you and make you who you are today. And with that type of a concrete foundation, you can't take that away. So I hope that you do, that you love your mother, that you show her that you love her, and you give her the respect and the adoration that she deserves. But if you're here this morning and you have come to that conclusion that Jesus Christ is the Son of God and you have not taken that step to become a Christian, we give you that opportunity this morning. Maybe you're already a Christian and you need some prayers of encouragement. If you're here this morning and you have any need, please come forward as we stand and sing this song.